This is the show dedicated to raising up the next generation of men of faith and character. My name is Mark Stanifer. Welcome to the Next Man Up. Well, hey guys, welcome back to the show. So good to have you with us. And I am Mark. My sidekick today is Josh. Hey, man.
Hey.
What's going on?
How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. It's good to be back after Thanksgiving.
Yes, and we won't go into that, but I know you had a good one. We had a good one. So it looked a little different than what we had anticipated, as did yours.
Yes.
But still found ways to be grateful and to enjoy connection with family and friends.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question for you.
Uh-oh. What you got?
Which is, I often start these with a question, which is a leading question that ties right into our topic.
Yeah, no, that's kind of bare.
Yeah. What do you do with Santa?
Oh, man. Are you talking about like the Santa Claus movies?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, those you could watch and rewatch, some of them anyway. No, I'm thinking like we're now past Thanksgiving, heading into the Christmas season. It's
upon us.
Fair enough. Yeah. So it's full on, since Black Friday deals have been running since the beginning of October, almost, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. So we're going full steam into Christmas season, and there's this cultural component of Christmas for many people that is Santa Claus.
Yes. Huge.
And my kids are well past that age. Your child
isn't quite there yet.
It's on the horizon.
Yes.
And I know we've got listeners all across the spectrum. So I wondered if we could have a little bit of fun with this idea of what do you do with Santa Claus?
Yeah, I mean, there's this whole movement about not even mentioning Santa Claus or not creating any sort of reference to Santa Claus because you don't want to wreck your kids' trust in you. You don't want to create a lie in your family and then burst their bubble and disillusion them at like a really formative age.
Yep.
And I would agree with that. I think there's some wisdom in that. But then there's also like there's supposed to be this mystery thing and anticipation around Christmas of not really knowing what you're going to get for Christmas, assuming that you're getting anything, though most people do have the Christmas gift thing going on. And who's going to give it to you? So there's a tension there about Santa Claus. At least it's developed in the last 15 years or so. I don't think our parents ever felt that tension. They just kind of went with it. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? The
tension of do we, don't we?
That it was just like it was. Yeah. This is what we do. There was never a question of like, should we do this? Should we not?
So it's interesting because, I'm going back in time now. The wife and I celebrated 25 years of marriage a few months ago. So like that's 2.5 decades and it's been fantastic. But if I go back in time to the point at which we were beginning to build our family and we're talking about this Santa thing, our decision really came out of our own experiences as kids growing up.
Okay.
So my experience was Santa who?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as a family, we never did the Santa thing. And, you grow up in a family thinking that your experience in that family is normal, right?
Yeah.
Until you encounter other families and realize that, no, that was just your experience. But we didn't do it. And I think the real reason was because my parents were concerned that if they lied to us, listeners, you can't see me, but I'm air quotes, if they lied to us about that, it might undermine their credibility about more important things.
Yeah, and that's like the whole
Jesus.
That's the whole yeah, and that's the whole debate thing that's going on right now amongst believers, amongst Christians about whether they should even bring up the Santa thing. So your parents like ran into the issue themselves.
That's right. And they chose for the family that hey, we're just not going to do it. Now we weren't Santa deniers, and we weren't never Santa-ers.
Yeah.
To borrow some political terms, but we just didn't do it, and so no pictures, no letters to Santa, no naughty nice list. So that was my experience. My wife's, on the other hand, was very much about Santa. Santa was part of their celebration. In fact, she had an uncle that every year would dress up as Santa Claus when she was younger. And in the house that she grew up in, they had an outdoor entrance into their basement. And so on Christmas Eve, Uncle would exit the house as Uncle would re-enter the house through this scary basement external door as Santa, and it freaked her out. Like literally, she was not just afraid of Santa, she was afraid of basements for a long, long time.
Wow.
And so her experience was not a positive one with Santa.
Dramatic.
Yeah, exactly. At least at a young age. She grew out of that. Mostly.
Does she still stand at the top of basement stairs trembling?
I love you, dear. But she grew out of that as she got older for sure. But for her, it was a very traumatic thing. And so couple that with my experience and just kind of thinking through, like Santa just didn't hold a place or a fond place in our hearts. Mm-hmm. And so the path we charted for our kids was we're just not going to play the Santa game.
Okay.
Now, we told our kids, like, some people believe in Santa, and that's fine. So don't ruin it for them, right?
Yeah.
Don't spill the beans. But just as a family, we're not going to play the Santa game.
That's really interesting. So Santa was huge in our family and continues to be huge in our family. And for me, I think my little disillusion thing happened when I think we were visiting Disney World. And I was sleeping in the living room, and my mom's parents came in with gifts to leave them as Santa gifts, and I saw them leave the gifts. And this is what I remember. I could be wrong, but this is the foggy recollection. I was like, there isn't a Santa Claus. But it never like wrecked any sort of relationship out with my parents or anything like that. It was just kind of this realization of like, oh, there isn't really a Santa Claus. But the thing was, every single Christmas through my entire life, there's always been gifts under the tree from Santa.
Yeah.
And sometime in my late teens, we started establishing like gift amount limits so that we weren't just blowing gobs of money on expensive tech toys for family members. And invariably, there would be special dispensation for our parents to do whatever they want to do because, you know, it's they could break the rules. Right. And whatever they would give beyond the gift amount limit would be from Santa Claus.
Okay. Got it.
And
so the budget was for the humans, the excess in the right.
Yeah, it was for Santa Claus. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. So like every Christmas there's always some sort of like from Santa something under the tree. And we've always kind of like kept the tradition alive through my entire life. And I think there's something special about that. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that with my son because he's 2. He's not quite there yet. I think 6 months from now it'll be a different story, but he was born so late in the year that it's not quite Santa Claus time for him. He just doesn't connect the dots.
Yeah. But you know it's coming.
It's coming.
For sure next year.
Yeah, absolutely for sure next year. So we're trying to decide. I mean, I haven't talked with my wife about this yet, but we're going to have to decide how we want to approach this with our son. Now, my wife's brother would run. They would go to sleep on Christmas Eve, and her parents would leave the big gifts under the tree unwrapped.
Okay.
Because they were just too big, like bicycles or whatever. You couldn't wrap them.
Yeah.
So her brother would run downstairs before everyone else, see the gifts, and then run upstairs and report what the gifts were to the other kids and ruin Christmas for the other kids, which is hysterical.
Scout. Oh my gosh.
It's so wrong. And he would do it on purpose to ruin the gifts for his siblings.
So he was doing it in a very mischievous way.
Yeah. Not like...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was intentionally going down before anyone else would wake up. He'd be up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to go run down, and then he'd run up and wake everyone else up with like, you got a bike? And they're like, I didn't want to know. I wanted to find out when I get... Anyway, so... I don't know if that's really a Santa thing, but that was like the family tradition thing with Katie's family. Interesting.
So there's this whole spectrum then, right? Like
yeah, across the gamut.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you know, we've been having a little fun with this, but it's worth discussing as parents. What do you do? And I think The older I get, the more I appreciate questions. I used to really appreciate the answers. Now I appreciate the questions more. But I think a good question to ask, especially for those that are beginning the journey, like you, Josh, where you come out of your own experience, but you're blended now with your wife, and you've got a child that is on the cusp. I think a good question is, what role does Santa play?
I think that's a great question. And I mean, you already decided for your family that Santa wasn't going to play a role at all.
Right.
And I've been thinking a lot about this. I mean, that's like I said, we're trying to figure out what to do with Kai. And a few years back, I ran across this really great idea of how to address the Santa Claus question. And because one of the things about like your children discovering that Santa Claus isn't real is it calls into question everything else that you've told them that has a little bit of, suspect origins to it.
That's one of the big arguments for not believing in Santa, right?
So, and I think that it's a I don't know if I would call it a good argument, but it's a legitimate argument. There's a reason why people are asking that question. And so I ran across this idea of, I can't remember where I read this or who told me about it. But there's this idea that as children age out of Santa Claus, the whole Santa Claus tradition or mystique or mystery or whatever, that you explain the whole Santa Claus tradition as something that adults get to do for younger children. It's a way of blessing other people without them knowing that it's you.
Okay.
That's the idea of Santa Claus, right? So as parents, you want to be able to give something to your kids without them necessarily knowing that it's you giving it to them.
Got it.
It's the whole reason why our family did the whole excess is from Santa Claus deal, right? And so as kids age out of the Santa Claus experience, you draft them into the Santa Claus core almost. That you have them join the group of adult Santa Claus people who are in on the secret. That Santa Claus are individuals blessing others without it being known. And so now they get to carry on their tradition of giving to others without being recognized for it directly.
So you invite them to become a conspirator, if you will, in the mystery and the mystique. Yeah. And what I'm also hearing you say is in the purpose, which isn't so much about me getting, but me giving and blessing others.
Right. So they become a Santa Claus. Santa Claus has always existed. It's been me, your dad, and your mom. So now you're a Santa Claus. Who are you going to want to be a Santa Claus to? Because now you're building a tradition of giving instead of getting. It's no longer about you. It's about others.
Yeah.
And that's a value that I want to pass on to my kids. That's like something that we want to build into the foundation of our family structure, our family culture. So instead of Santa Claus becoming this thing that disillusions children when the mystery is broken, it becomes something that's empowering to them to shift into an adult mode of giving.
I hadn't thought about this until we got into the conversation. But the argument against Santa that we've laid out here really, in some respects, it misses the fun and the excitement and the mystery and what we talk about as being or at least as what we want to have as a significant part of Christmas, which is that Christmas spirit, right? The joy and the cheer and the giving and the blessing of others. And by taking Santa out of the equation, at least in my family, we also took out some of that mystery and some of that excitement. And I'm wondering, had I had the tool or the idea that you just described, if I would have made a different decision, if my parents would have made a different decision, 40 years ago, 50 years ago almost, when they were deciding. It feels like, I guess maybe what I'm saying is there's a component in thinking of it like you just described. There's a component of the fun and the cultural expression that can still be incorporated, but it can be leveraged as part of that development, that kid development process versus like, oh, I'm just going to yank the Santa rug right out from under you because you saw me bring in all the gifts. Surprise, there is no Santa, right? Like that's the traumatic thing that I think parents want to avoid.
Yeah, and then your child, when they discover that Santa Claus isn't a real person, wrecking it for other kids,
right?
Who haven't caught up with that yet, because man, like this idea just works on so many levels. I'm so glad whoever came up with this is just a genius about flipping the script on this thing, because now it becomes about empowering your kids to act more mature, to behave more mature, to protect those who are still vulnerable. Like there's so many great things that you can like riff on about this idea. So anyways, I think that's what we're going to do with my son. And I would just encourage our listeners to think about maybe doing that with theirs.
It also sounds like a great dovetail or a great component of what we talk about here all the time, right? Which is initiation.
Right.
The process of raising up adults.
Yes, exactly.
Not just raising kids. And I'm sure most parents don't go into parenting hoping to raise that, raise the brat, right? That self-serving, entitled kid. But there's a strong undercurrent of Christmas that feeds that message, about me. There's another undercurrent about performance too, right? And being recognized for your performance or being denied because of performance. But the thing that I like about what you're sharing is it can be integrated right into the overall philosophy and vision of a family, which is raising up that next generation. In our case, we talk about sons, right? Raising up the next generation of men. Obviously, it applies to girls becoming women too, but like it just fits.
Yeah, I mean, we don't raise kids; we raise adults. I'm not sure where I heard that first. It's not an original idea at all, but I've just really fell in love with that. We are here to raise adults, because if we're raising kids and releasing them in the world, we're just gonna like make the problem worse.
Right. Right.
So here's a small part of the initiation journey of your boy into manhood.
Yeah. What a great idea. And, I was spinning through a Facebook group that I'm a part of, and I saw some of this dialogue too recently, like, hey, what do you guys do about Santa? Or when do you tell your kid? Or how many out here do Santa, don't do Santa, right? Like just some of those posts.
Yeah.
And I came across another interesting idea or interesting resource for parents to the extent that they're interested.
Okay.
Somebody wrote a book, and I didn't do enough study to figure out who, but we'll post a website with the show notes. But somebody wrote a book about Santa discovering the gospel. And it's fairly well done. Like it feels a little bit like some of the Jesus Storybook Bible type of illustrations and story, like on that level. And it's all about Santa discovering and embracing who Jesus is and the life transformation that can have. So it's an interesting take. Again, obviously my kids are a little too old for this, but maybe that becomes part of a conversation with grandkids, or maybe it just informs parents, you guys, listeners, as you're thinking about this question, what role does Santa play in our family? But the website is Santa Gospel. It's 6 minutes. They actually read the book, and so you don't have to necessarily buy the book. You can watch this video where they read it with some graphics behind the scenes. That presentation is well done, but it's an interesting take, right? Like flipping the script, if you will, like you said, versus just rolling right into, well, this is what we did as a family growing up, and so this is what we're going to do. Like, no, be intentional about it. Decide, have reasons behind it, and whatever path you choose, may it be an intentional choice rather than just a default.
Yeah. What's that website again?
It is santagospel.com.
Okay.
And again, we'll put it out in the show notes.
Great.
So, listeners, here's a question for you. Josh and I would love to know what you guys do. What did you do growing up? What did you decide to do with the Santa thing for your family? Would you do it different going back on it? We would love for you to just drop us a line. You can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com, or if you head on out to our Facebook page, you'll actually be able to see a live recording. We're Facebook Living this one. You can see a live recording of this, and you can comment there if you're so inclined. But we would love to hear what your experience was. Just add to the conversation. And I imagine that there are dads that are listening here wondering, okay, what are we going to do? Either with our little one, or we've got kids on the way. What are we going to do? So toss out some ideas, some tips, suggestions, your experience, your story, and we would love to hear that. Feedback@thenextmanup.com is the email address, or NMU Journey is where we live on Facebook.
All right.
Josh, thanks for your stories, for the idea. Like, dude, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know who came up with it, but they're like a genius.
Yeah, I love it. And listeners, as always, thanks for being with us. And we'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Until then, adios. Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. You know, we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.